Hi, welcome to How Literature Can Save the World, where we explore the written word's impact on our culture and our relationships with ourselves, each other, and the environment. I'm your host, Michelle R. Brady. I am a writer, editor, and attorney who just wants to talk about how we use the power of words for good and where you can find the ones that will help you see the world in a different way, like traveling without leaving your house. So, grab a drink or a blanket or an animal to pet, and let's begin to make our lives more meaningful one book at a time.
The trouble that mankind makes is that he thinks he's Italian, he's German, he's Spanish. We're all humans on this beautiful paradise is our earth.
Get excited. The people listening, so family members, probably people whose Netflix series just ended, random strangers, household pets, and possibly some of my enemies. But get excited anyway, because I have Randy Winston, and he is the creative director of fiction at The Blacklist. He's the former director of writing programs at the Center for Fiction, which I can't wait to talk to you about, by the way, where he was in charge of the writing courses, the first novel prize, emerging writer fellowship, and I think some other things as well, which I'm sure you'll talk about. Randy is also a writer who is, I hope I can say this, working on his debut.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. And he's the former editor of literary magazines, an MFA grad. He's on the board for, Right On NYC. And last but not least, how I found Randy. He's the host of the podcast, Read the Acknowledgements, where he interviews writers and everyone involved in publishing, and it has been exceptionally helpful for me personally, and I know that that's the case for other people. So, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome so much. And I think you can tell this is not a super professional enterprise like you have, where, I don't offer practical advice. This is like a conversation about ideas and reading between people who read. And my thing, I think you may know this, but just to clarify, is that I have felt increasingly despondent with the state of the country. And when I thought back to why some people I knew or in my, my family can possibly believe things that I think are insane, I realized it's because I read. I read all the time. And so I get to live 100 lives that these people have never gotten to live, right? And so to me, sharing books is activism. It's something I feel really passionate about. And it's why I want to know which books, not yet, but which books, shaped you, made you who you are, things that you want to share with other people, things that can bring us together. I've had so many interesting people on this podcast that have given time to this cause, if you will, and I'm very grateful for all of you. But before we get into your books, because I don't want people to just turn it off then, because they got all the books. Tell me about your path. How did you do all this stuff?
Oh, goodness.
You've done so many things.
But yeah, and it's hard to keep track of sometimes. Goodness. I will tell you this. I remember being a kid and realizing that I wanted to be a sketch artist. I didn't know what a sketch artist did. I was like, well, I want to be a sketch artist because it was something that I was really, really good at. I also, I was born in the late 80s, so I came up during a time when animation was originated from sketch art, sketch drawings. And I don't know, it was always really fascinating to me. I had dreams of going to art school and then eventually working for a company like a Disney or something. That was the golden dream. The Lion King was my favorite movie of all time growing up, and that was it. I love stories. I'll say that before I understood words, how to put words together, before I understood how to read sentences, I knew music, I knew images, I knew sounds, and that was what language was for me. And so, fast forward to being in undergrad and figuring out that, I can sketch in architecture, or at least that's what I thought. And then I started doing architecture and realizing that it was a lot more there than I cared to work towards. And by that point, I had been writing so much that the transition to writing was just very seamless. I will say though, just going back, and you probably jump in here and stop me whenever, because I can
No,
talk
I don't want to
forever.
stop you.
I will say that one of the things that I always like to make clear was that I was not raised on books. I was like, my parents had a library, and like and by library I mean the local library was giving away books for little or nothing, like pennies. And my parents went to the local library, grabbed as many boxes as they could put in the van, and brought them home, and we called that a library. That was it.
It
So
is
it
a
wasn't like mahogany shelves and, like Beauty and the Beast on the ladder. It was literally just, yeah, a box, like boxes of books. One of those boxes was the encyclopedias. Another box was dictionaries. Another box was like the National Geographic magazines. And then we had like a few pieces of fiction, but not much. And so a lot of the reading I did growing up was in sports magazines. It was sports journalism. And I would read people like Tom Rinaldi and Scoop Jackson, who were phenomenal writers. Bomani Jones, phenomenal writer. Jackie McMiniman, like just like really, really strong writers who just so happen not to be writing fiction, but nonfiction. They're writing about sports and how you frame a career, how do you frame a moment in time, and how that intersects with culture, which is a great introduction to how you talk about stories, because those stories are about people. And so fast forward to when I started, like I had to leave high school to start reading on my own, because in high school this is no disrespect to the books we read in high school, but we were reading books that were of a curriculum that I was just not a fan of. I never was. And I
You're
grew up
not
in
the
the
only
South.
one. Lots of people said the same thing that
Yeah.
they didn't like any of those books.
Yeah, I grew up in the South, in Georgia, South Atlanta. Went to Westlake High School, and we read "Their Eyes Were Watching God." We read, I forget the Morrison book that we read, but like a lot of,
It's probably beloved.
and I don't know if it was Beloved. And then we read a lot of
Maybe not because
Shakespeare.
of the yeah.
We had to read a lot of Shakespeare, and I didn't want to. I At that time, at that moment, I'm listening to Outkast, SWV, Joyce Littell,
SWV.
Ludacris. Like I'm listening to all this stuff, and I don't know. For me, it just I couldn't connect that with the books. And so I didn't start taking reading seriously until after high school, when I had the time and there wasn't as much pressure and there wasn't a grade on the line for a book report. And I started reading, and I was reading nonfiction on finance, which is really nerdy. And then eventually that crossed over into fiction, which, was love at first sight. And over time, the writing, the commitment that I was giving to writing started to move into books as well. And so by the time I went back to school, because I had dropped out of school for 4 years, by the time I went back to school and was doing architecture, I was reading a lot, which fed into me wanting to leave architecture, if I'm being honest. Got my undergraduate degree, and a lot of what we're going to discuss in terms of books, I will have to revisit the past. I'm just trying to get through, because my story is very long. Graduated, moved to New York to get an MFA at the New School. After that, met some folks and ended up joining Slice Literary Magazine, which was a phenomenal magazine of its time, and was a fiction editor there. And then did some executive admin work at the New School again. Worked for a charter school for a little bit in executive admin, and then landed a job at the Center for Fiction. And at the Center for Fiction, my job was simple: support writers, bridge that gap, connect them with people in the industry. And I took that a step further and got into the education educating writers about the business. Like that was my legacy. That is my legacy. That's even at the Blacklist. My job is to make sure writers know what the business is.
I think the truth is that we all want to romanticize the publishing industry and think of it as like, oh, we're just amazing, beautiful artists, and somebody's going to discover us, and then they're going to make us famous or whatever they're going to do, and I'm going to change a bunch of lives. And what I've already noticed in my own journey is that there's a hell of a lot of collaboration that goes into this stuff. And I'll tell you what else that I've learned recently is I'm opening my own bookstore, and I quit my law job and was just like, the only thing that can change people's minds is books. I've just decided that because my work as a lawyer was not making a difference. So what I will say is that when I've been working with the ABA, the American Booksellers Association, and going to meetings and stuff, I'm not the only one. And a bunch of people are opening little bookshops. And what we want to do is push certain kinds of books. I want to push something that's going to help somebody. I want to talk to people and hand sell something that I care about. And I think that I'm not the only person doing that.
No, it's just the logic is I'm not saying that people need to learn the business to become gatekeepers or to be cynical about how things are made. I'm saying learn it so that then you can decide, all right, this is how I'm going to navigate this for myself based on everything that I want out of this career, out of this life. This is how I'm going to do it, because now you have an understanding and you can build a blueprint from that. But when you don't know, you think, oh, I'm going to get an MFA. Maybe I'll teach adjunct. I'm going to write some books. I'll do some residencies, see if I can get tenure somewhere. I might not like it, but then it'll give me more time to write. And so like you just do this cycle, and it's no disrespect. Like I know some of my best friends are incredible professors, but it's because they love to teach and they care about the students. And then other people have to do it because it's going to make the ends meet. And all I tell my the writers that I mentor is to think about the business, because if you're thinking about the business, you realize something very important is that readers are the most important thing for your story. They're the most important thing for your book. Like the readers, that's your audience. And the publisher sometimes can't figure that out for you. You have to know that for yourself and guide them and tell them, hey, this is the audience for this book. It might be a little niche, but hey, I know that this is who this book speaks to. This is who I wrote it for. And here are all the ways that we can market and publicize this so that those folks are buying this book. Like that's important. And people don't think about that enough because we're not trained to. Like for the history of literature says that you just write and read and romanticize about it.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this a few years ago. I've been doing this before New York. When I was in undergrad, I was the editor of a student paper, university paper. And our work was supporting the student body. That's our community. Because what else are we doing this for? Like if I'm free and my neighbor is suffering, am I really free?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And in fact, one of the things that I really loved about your podcast is that you talk about community a lot. And one of the things that you ask sometimes is, I don't want to butcher this, but it's like, when was the first time that you learned that your work meant something to someone other than you? And I love that question so much. And I want to know what your answer is to that.
So I'll go back to high school. There was a moment in high school, and I can say this now. Actually, I said it years ago, but I'll say it now for sure. There was a professor. His name was Mr. Edwards, and from my perspective, he was very militant. He meant right by it. He was militant, and we needed like there were a few students who actually needed that kind of teaching. We didn't need to be coddled. We needed a firm, strict hand. We needed authority. And this is coming from somebody who was always a BA student, honor roll, this and that. But for some reason in 10th grade, things I was just mellowing out, and I just wasn't about it. And I was in his technology class. I believe it was technology. And I did not do well. I think I had an F at the end of the year. It was my first F in my entire like at that point, you gotta remember, like, elementary school to high school, 10th grade, it was my first F ever. And so he gave us an opportunity to show up for 2 weeks after school was over, so during the summer, to do projects to get your grade up to a D. I did it. I got a D. And after that, I left the magnet program, which was like the honor program at the school. And so going into junior year, I dedicated some of my time to writing and joining the school newspaper. And I wrote this essay in the school newspaper in the fall, so a few months after leaving his class, about selfishness and how we can learn from like insecurities and just learning how to become less selfish about like how we move and how we come together and how we treat people. And I didn't think anything of it. I did, but I wrote it, and it was who I was thinking about were my peers. That was my audience. That's who I wrote it for, and I put it out there. And a friend of mine came to me. It was after the first period, so the newspaper went out that morning. And after first, maybe second period, a friend of mine came to me and he went, "Mr. Edwards stopped class at the beginning to talk about your essay," because he was very impressed with it. And that was just like, yeah, that meant everything to me, because I realized that a lot of my time in his class, I was trying to prove that I belonged in there, and it was exhausting, and I gave up in a way. And so for him to see me and see my value in writing was like, that was memorable. It was moving.
Yeah, that's a really good story. I bet it was really helpful for him too, though, like, I don't know, obviously he had some kind of goal in his teaching methods with you guys, and maybe it made him feel like he was doing something right, even though it really wasn't about him,
Oh, I mean, like, listen, Michelle, I imagine you taught a class before, or been in front of a group of students, maybe, or
Maybe.
mentored somebody.
I'm mentoring
And
you, right? This is what this is.
like like I have been disappointed by people before.
Yeah.
Like people that I have high expectations for, and they've disappointed me. And I put myself in his shoes. Like in retrospect, like in thinking, I put myself in his shoes, and it's like, as an adult, I'll be 40 this year. I'm thinking like, yeah, like I can be disappointed and not lose hope,
Yep.
and still love somebody. And so in that way, like that's what that moment showed me, was like, oh, I'm like, I disappointed him once, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that I was someone with no value.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah, and I think that that's really the kind of feeling that we all need to have in this moment, is that, like, we just need to share perspectives with people in a way that they can empathize with and understand. I wrote a thing about how reading can increase empathy, and how you can see it light up parts of your brain that doing the thing lights up parts of your brain for. It's like reading about it or doing it are the same. And actually, I read 2 studies that said that you identify more with the character you're reading and the setting that they are in than the chair that you're physically sitting in and the room around you. And that's why I think it's so important that we have these conversations. Could you talk about some of the books?
I will tell you that Helen Shulman, my professor and somebody who I'm very close to and still keep in contact with, and I saw her when I was out in Paris, her and her husband, she told me to read Jesus' Son by Dennis Johnson. Like, she was like, you have to read this book. That was 2014 in the fall. I did not read Jesus' Son until 2016, 2017, because I didn't, like, you gotta, like, think about it. I grew up on hip hop culture. Like, I didn't like literature being forced on me.
Yeah.
I liked walking into it. And that was a book that like I felt a lot of pressure to read, so I didn't. But when I read it, like I have Helen Shulman to thank for that. I have Tiffany Unique to thank for Jamaica Kincaid. She was the one who put me on to Jamaica Kincaid, another professor who was at the New School during that time. She told me what to start with, and I rebelled and started with See Now Then. Funny enough, See Now Then is my favorite Jamaica Kincaid book, and it taught me a lot about my place in spaces as a man and how women, especially black women, have to account for everything happening around them, including the people in those spaces. And they see everything. Like women see like you Michelle, women see everything. And I don't have to think about the same things when I'm walking down the street, the same things when I'm in a bar, the same things when I'm walking down a dark lit hall that you have to think about. Like, and it's not that I did not, it's not that that was something that I didn't clock when I was in high school or college, but literature,
You
when
feel
it's
it. You
on
can
the
feel how it feels.
when it's on the page,
Yep.
like I am now a reader, a man who has to sit with the feeling that this mother has, the feeling that this mother who's also a wife has about her abusive husband for 20 pages. Before we even move on to the action, I'm sitting with this for 20 pages. Like, so when you talk about like literature and why it's important, I mean, like I had to read. We had book club, and I had to read Jamel Brinkley's A Lucky Man, and that book put into context and validated my feelings about the relationships I have with my friends who are men, separate from women. Just my relationship with them, and the license that I know I have to tell people to their face that I love you,
Yeah.
and be okay with that. Whereas when I grew up, I was told you cannot cry, you
Yeah.
cannot tell a man how you feel. I like all of these things because it makes you soft. It makes you people think you're soft. People think you're weak. These are books that do that. I think a lot about Citizen by Claudia Rankin and Riot Baby by Tochi Onyebuchi, because those texts make me sit with the anger that I've always had about my body and this country that I live in. And what do I do with that anger?
Yeah.
Like
What do you do with it? It makes you feel like you're not alone.
I mean, it is when I think back to my trajectory in my career, there is it's not even vague. There is a clear line that connects all the books that have introduced me to the world and every stage of my career. Like Struck by Lightning, which I read in undergrad, and 1984, which I read in undergrad. Like the reason why I was the first student to ever give a commencement speech in the history of Southern Polytechnic State University can be drawn back to the night I met Isabel Wilkerson when she was doing her book event for Warmth of Other Suns. Like that is so wild to me. That like I just thinking about that. Like if that night, if I don't go to that book event, I am not the commencement speaker, which opened so many doors for me. It's wild. I mean, I think about when I was a kid and reading what was that book? Curious George and Magic School Bus and Bernstein Bears, and like just feeling this like I always wanting to get away from the reality that I was living in, and those books being like just pictures mostly. It's more pictures and like action, like figures and land and colors than it is words. But still, it's like when I think about what my imagination is today and Like there are some agents that have my pages now. I just started querying, but like
So
when
happy.
when I think about like who people see me as and what they're reading on that page, I know that they are like, what the hell? Because that like my imagination is vast. It's and that it all goes back to those early days, and then reading Marlon James and reading stuff like The Changeling by Victor Laval and reading Exit West and like Brief History of Seven Killings, like just
Yeah.
the
Yes.
just the courage to do what he did over all those pages. Like I think about something like I think about a book like Temple Folk by Aaliyah Bilal,
I'm
and
writing down every book that you say that I haven't read.
I mean like I grew up I grew up in the Bible Belt. I grew up in the South. Was raised in church. My parents worked in the church. We were in choirs. And I'm reading Temple Folk, which is a book that centers African American Muslim women. So somebody might go, well, you grew up Christian. Why is that book important to you? Like, why should it
Because
matter?
I didn't grow up Muslim. That's why it's important. Like,
And it's like, how can I be of service to a community that includes people from all walks of life
Yeah.
if I don't try on my own to understand where they come from? It's like I don't know. It's just really important to me. I'll read you something like just think about the power that books have. One of my closest friends, Yadai Israel, gave me this book. It is a first edition Notes of Native Sons by James Baldwin, and this is the letter. It was his copy. So this is first edition. I can count on my hand two people who are like not just James Baldwin fans and scholars. They're ride or die.
yeah.
And that's Robert Jones Jr. and that's Yadon Israel. And Yadon gave me his only copy, which is a first edition of this book. And it said, Randy, if it hadn't been for this man, I wouldn't have had the language to allow us to be friends. So it's only right that you have this early edition of his first essay collection. That's what books do.
That's awesome.
Like that's what books do. So yeah.
Especially when he said the language, right? Because without the vocabulary to describe the way we're feeling and without the vocabulary to describe the way we're thinking, it's not just that we can't talk to each other, it's that we can't understand it. Like we need to have the words to understand it ourselves. When you said that when you were a kid that you wanted to be anywhere but where you were, I guess one of my questions is, because I felt that way too, when you read things that are hard, even though they're somewhere that's not where you are, how I want to help other people get past that. Because what I've noticed is this huge reticence to read things that are challenging, and not challenging like structurally and not challenging vocabulary wise. I'm saying emotionally challenging things that are authentic to the writer, right? Like maybe not true, but like true to their experience of life. And those are the most important things that have changed me over time, is reading other people who are different from me, to read their authentic experiences. But it's hard, right? Like some of the stuff is really heavy and really sad.
I'm the wrong person to ask that question, and the right person, because I actually and this isn't something that happened overnight, right? I'll be 40 this year. This took
You
time.
are young to me. All right, keep going.
This took time. Thank you. It took time, but my understanding of how of the nature of this world and how unforgiving this world is, and my acceptance of how unforgiving this world is why what might be challenging for other people to read on an emotional level is not for me. I will walk right into it. it does not mean I will not have an emotional reaction. It just means that I welcome it.
Yeah.
And it's because, and when I say I've accepted the unforgiving nature of the world, it doesn't mean that I agree with it, right?
Right.
It just means that I know that me, black man, I know that if I go to a certain neighborhood, my presence makes people feel uncomfortable. And they don't have to say it. I can clock it in body language. I can clock it in how they speak to me. Like, I can clock it in how they call the manager to the front of the restaurant and hand me a menu and say, you might want to look at this before you walk in here because it's expensive. There's an understanding of the nature of the world on certain levels and the degrees of unforgiving. And it's because of that I'm okay when, like, it's the same way that I travel. I read the same way that I travel. Like, I'm going to be fine. If something happens, then all right, it was my time.
So what you just said was sort of exactly the way you described reading Jamaica Kincaid, and the fact that, like, you see it, so you know that this stuff is happening intellectually, but it's a different experience to feel it and to sit with it, like you said, for 20 pages before you get to something else. And so what you just described to me is not something I have felt, right? I know that it happens. I know that. But were I to read a book that you wrote about it, not saying that that's what your book is about, but if it was, then I would feel it in a way that makes it mine. And I think that's what's so important is inhabiting each other's experiences.
I will tell you, like, the thing, I will tell you too, the thing that I've discovered for myself, and it may not be this way for other people, but what has worked for me is because I've accepted the nature of this world, it's a lot easier for me to get to joy.
Yeah.
It's just a lot easier because I can go, all right, well, I know what that is. Now let's go over here. And so people will tell me, people will tell me, like, yo, you have a positive attitude or outlook or XYZ. And it's, well, I know the other end of it. And I see it. Like, if I get on a plane, I am terrified of heights. I'm terrified of altitude, all of it. I am scared out of my mind. So in my mind, I've accepted that what is the worst thing that can happen on a plane? All right, done. Now let's enjoy this flight, because you've already accepted that either something gonna happen or nothing gonna happen. And now I'm gonna get on this flight and I'm gonna enjoy this champagne.
Yeah.
When I'm in first class. Nice. When I'm in first class, not all the time.
What did I not ask you that you want to share with people on the message, right? Like or against the message. You could say something that you think I'm totally wrong about.
Nah, I listen, I think that every great story is a story that concerns itself with people.
Yeah.
The books that I love because the author cares about people. And I think that is something that I take with me in everything that I do in life. I know that when I do my work, it will not reach everybody. I only need it to reach one person. If the work that I do reaches one person, that is my legacy, and I am done. And so, I think
you've already done it.
I think about one of my best friends. He lost his mom recently. Her name was Sheila Lambert, and she was incredible. Treated me like family. I've known her for 12 years, and she was just always a light for me. And she instilled in him, which I did not know until the funeral. I didn't know that she preached this to him. But she instilled in him, if you save one person, you've saved the world. And I think about my relationship with him and how I've benefited from that, right? And now you think about when you write a book or when you read a book and then you share that book with somebody and they fall in love with it. and they learn something from it. I like when people tell me what are the books you learn from most. Like I gave you the fun answer, right? But the real, like the other answer, the other side of that is every book has taught me something, and I'm able to pull something out of every book that I've read that has made me a better human being and has taught me about how I can treat people, and taught me how to move and give myself grace in this world because it is unforgiving. And so finding ways to show and give appreciation and have joy when the world, especially like if you think about everything that's happening right now, is telling you you're not supposed to have joy. That is the power of books.
Okay, so just because of what you just said, I just want to show these two. I am reading these two books right now. This is in translation, Mothers.
Nice.
But this
Better
book,
mothers.
He wrote American War or Wars, I can't remember, and I think they've both been. I'm reading them simultaneously.
Say the author on the second book because people need to know what that is.
Omar, I hate to say this wrong. Okay, Omar El Akkad.
Okay.
You see.
One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This,
Yeah.
which is a phenomenal book, and he gave a great speech at the National Book Awards.
And I did not see that. I just wanted to read this book.
Oh, you should. I'll send you the link. It was incredible.
What are you reading right now? You know, like, or what would you recommend right now? Even if it's not a life-changing book, it could just be a good book.
I mean, honestly, I mean, it sounds nerdy, but I would highly recommend.
I have that book, by the way.
I mean, listen, it's for folks that are listening and not watching. It is The Anatomy of Genres: How Story Forms Explain the Way the World Works by John Truby. So context is everything. It's not enough to just be like, oh, I like this book. I will tell you why this book is important. When you're talking about books to people, oftentimes we lead with feelings, which is very, very important, and it's valid. That's what gets people to buy books. If you really think about it, if you can frame something in a way that gets people to act on their feelings to buy a book, you've won. You've won. But it also helps you articulate why you love what you love. It also helps you articulate why something is not working the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
And I think that is very important because, again, thinking about educating ourselves, especially educating writers, but also readers. Now, as a reader, you better understand, as a consumer, what you love and what you don't, and what's going to challenge you and what's not challenging you. And you know the why behind it. And that's what that book is doing because it's breaking down genres. Like, I didn't realize the book that I'm writing is horror.
But you know, people are doing lots of cross-genre stuff too, which
But
I think
had no idea. All this time, the early readers have been saying it's literary science fiction. It's spec fiction.
yeah.
And I'm reading this book, and I'm like, wow, there are a lot of religious undertones, life versus death, trying to escape and run from, like, all of this stuff
I'll
is
read
happening.
this book, by the way.
but like, it's helping you better understand the books, and the books are like are what gives life to the world that we live in. So in essence, you're learning about the world that you're moving in, and the air that you're learning about it on a molecular level, which I think is really exciting. And it's not talking over your head. It's not, look, I have a PhD. It's no, let me break this down so that everybody can understand it. And there's examples in there. There's step-by-steps in there, examples. And it lets me know that John Truby cares about people, because he could have easily written a PhD dissertation book that has like 15 SAT words on every sentence, every page. And he did not. He wrote a book that we can all digest. And I appreciate him for that. I can take that book and to anybody, people that don't even read books, and they would enjoy, because that book transcends books. Yeah. It helps you understand why you like the films that you like. It helps you understand why you enjoy the TV shows you enjoy. it gives you language. And I think a gift that a storyteller can give you is the gift of language.
So if anybody, I mean, he definitely just described this really well, but the book basically breaks down genre expectations so that you know that, like, these are the sort of things that these readers are looking for in this kind of genre based on the fact that that's what most of them are, right? So it's like sort of cyclical, but it's also about storytelling generally and narrative. So unless I could be saying things that you don't agree with here, but my impression was that storytelling and narrative can go to anything that you do. It goes to advertising, it goes to anybody trying to convince anybody of anything. Like, analyzing what makes a story work and what makes it not work is really important. And the other thing I kept thinking about, I'm sorry, Randy, I know you got to go.
No. I'm smiling because I'm about to tell you something as a follow up. Go ahead.
Oh, no, okay. Well, yeah, and totally correct me if I'm saying insane things, but I think it's really important to know how to frame it in a way that people will keep reading. And if you can't do that, then it doesn't matter how great your message is, because nobody's going to read it.
So one, thank you. Two, I'm smiling because he actually wrote another book,
Oh.
The Anatomy of Story. He's breaking down like story, like on a molecular level, and why it works and why it doesn't. So that goes beyond the restrictions of genre, because it's like, all right, this is story. Like, it's exciting. I love that stuff. Again, because it gives you language. So now when I'm trying to figure out how to describe why a scene works so well, and you and I are like, I don't know, it was just really good. Why? But why? Like, now I have language for it.
Do you feel like you want to talk about your book at all, or no?
It is a story about a guy who discovers that the woman who's raising him is not who she says she is. So the book is a letter to his biological mother, who's no longer alive. So he never got to meet her. And it's about how he found out and how he comes to terms with that.
I can't wait. It's going to happen. And I had a great conversation with you. This was amazing. And sorry if I talked too much.
No, it's okay. Thank you for doing what you do. I think it's important. There's never, we need more people talking about the importance of books. So thank you for what you're doing. This is important.
Well, I appreciate it. And I will listen to the episode that you dropped today, because I need them in my life to tell me about what the hell I'm doing. So thank you.
You're welcome. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much for listening. Until next time, and in the words of my daughter,
let's hip hop our way out.